G'day guys, I'm sure you all know what it's like when you're working on your car. Sometimes it's taking forever and then suddenly you can say to yourself, well, we're almost done. Well, we're not almost done, but we are making slow progress, and I just thought I'd better put out another video and just give you guys an update of where we are, so hope you enjoy it. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel if you're a previous viewer, and if not, if you've just joined the channel, I hope you stick around and hopefully you'll enjoy some of the things that I'm doing here. Anyway, so with the coupe, we are making slow progress. If you had watched previous episodes, you'd be well aware of the fact that we've put the fuse box in the boot, the battery in the boot, etc. So what I'm doing in this one, I'm running some heavy duty power cables to the front for the starter, the alternator and the electric steering pump. Now I say that because I did have it mounted in the boot. I had planned to leave it in the boot, but it had actually been suggested this was going to be a little bit far away for it, so there was that plus a couple of other things that were bothering me about having it in the boot. So I've decided to actually mount it up front underneath the passenger guard because there's no room under the driver's guard, and I'm going to be running power cables to that and also planning on getting the steering lines made up. Actually, NZ is going to make up the steering lines. So anyway, we'll just move on and we'll check it out. So I've gone ahead and drilled a 38mm hole in the top of the sill panel there, as you can see, and I'm just threading through a bit of very flexible aluminium fuel line which I just had handy. So at the moment you can see I've just pulled through a fairly thick black cable now, and auto electrician suggested to me that I run a dedicated earthing cables directly to the engine block, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And here you can see that I've actually cut a small hole out of the inner sill right at the back there, and that's just going to allow me to pull the cable all the way through to that point, and then I will be able to basically redirect it vertically up through into the inner quarter. As you can see, I set up a little pulley system. It was sort of semi-effective, but would have been a lot better if I'd had some extra hands on the job. But anyway, I was on my own at this particular time, so just pulling it up through. And it was a case of a little bit at a time. Like I'd pull up a little bit of slack and then I'd have to go to the front and then push a little bit more cable down into the sill and then back here and pull it out. So a little bit tedious, but finally I got it done, and just pulling it through and getting it ready to attach to the isolation switch. So just in this case, I don't have the earth running directly to the battery. I had it running to an isolator switch. So when I isolate all the earthing from the battery. So here, just doing the same thing on the driver's side, 38mm hole, and got these rubber grommets off eBay which were a perfect fit. So again, I'm just going to run this soft flexible aluminium fuel line down through there. I'm going to hook it onto my ropes. So I had this short nylon string which I'm using to pull the cables through. It's only small, but it's extremely strong. So I had multiple ropes because I knew I was pulling at least 2 cables through, but I think it's a good idea to have a few extra in case you decide to run some extra lines at some point. So I've upsized all these cables from what they would have normally been, bearing in mind that the donor car is a 2016 Mustang GT. I took those cables and a bit of advice from an oil electrician, and basically upsized everything 2 sizes, and that's to basically counteract any amperage drop over the extra distance, and just to ensure that these cables are never going to get hot or give me any dramas. So I'm getting my lengths roughly organised by running the cable through where it needs to go, getting it hooked up onto the battery. Again, don't worry, this battery is isolated through that isolator switch, so the fact I'm screwing the positive on doesn't mean anything because the whole battery is isolated through the negative. So you can see doing it on your own a little bit tedious. It would be good if you're doing this to have a mate giving you a hand. You need someone to feed the cable as you're pulling it through. So this one is actually the alternator cable, again upsized. And what I've decided to do here is put a junction box, and that allows me to basically take up the excess to a point and terminate it, and then I can then work out my lengths for the other side of the cable which runs to the actual engine. This will of course be hidden because I'm going to have a guard liner inside, so this is all going to be tucked away and hidden away from view. So at this point I've moved on to the electric power steering pump. I'm going to go ahead and mount it up in this area here, right up inside the front guard. And the bracket is made out of some thin wall galv box section. I've got an angle line at the moment, it's just clear-coat to the inner guard, but the idea being that I'm going to run a series of bolts through the inner guard and also through the radiator support panel at the front there, and then it'll also have a vertical support coming down for the actual guard support right above it. So that's a vertical support there. Just a piece of 3 or 4 mil flat bar with a hole drilled through it. This frame that I'm making up is obviously going to be removable. Now I'm just attaching the frame which I bought off eBay for the electric pump. So that frame's specifically designed for that Astra pump. So here I'm just enlarging the holes. I had the holes originally drilled for Clecos, so I'm just enlarging them big enough for me to put some 10mm bolts through the radiator support, and then the one large bolt holding the frame vertically. So it is tucked right up in there, and it would be very awkward to try to service the pump. Basically it's just 4 bolts to remove the pump off its bracket. Yeah, you can just lower it down. So now I'm moving on to the exhaust system. Gone ahead and cleaned up those surfaces with the buffer. Also been ahead and cleaned up all the surfaces on the heads. Now I bought these stainless, I'm pretty sure they're stainless steel exhaust gaskets. They're basically 3 layers thick. You notice the embossing. Now I couldn't I kind of looked on YouTube briefly and I couldn't find anywhere that told me which way the embossing should go, so I don't know if this is right or wrong, but bearing in mind that this car's only been assembled for testing, so all of this will be coming off again eventually. So if any of you know how they're meant to go, is the embossing meant to be facing the head surface or the exhaust manifold surface? Or in this case, extractor's surface. Because the embossing is only on one side, the other side is flat. So as with all extractors, the bolts are a complete nightmare. It took me, I'm not sure, but it seemed like hours to get all the bolts and everything in. On this particular side, on the driver's side, I only had them sitting there loosely, so I've removed them and gone ahead and installed the startup motor, which originally I didn't think I could get in before the extractors, but then I found that if I just angled them up a certain way, I could get the extractors in with the starter on. Bolting the starter on, again, once the extractors were in, was going to be a nightmare for the top bolt. But anyway, this all went according to plan, but yeah, it was very painful. So now that's done, they're all secured, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the exhaust system in. So I was fairly lucky with the original donor car. I mean, it had low car, I think about 29,000 kilometers, but it came with a MagnaFlow 3-inch stainless exhaust system, American headers, and a cold air induction, so not a bad start. I'm hoping to reuse most of this exhaust system. I just want to find out if I'm able to take it somewhere and get it where they can clean it up and give it ceramic coating. So I just get it, you know, vaguely knocked together. Probably needs a bit of tweaking. As you can see at the moment, it looks a little bit out of whack. And I basically just get the ends attached, the mufflers attached, that is, just with a bit of welding wire. So just gives you a basic idea of how it's going to run. And I'm looking at this big gap under there and I'm wondering, should I put a fuel tank under the back, like a drop tank or something? Or, you know, because what I wanted to do originally, I wanted to mount the fuel tank right behind the seat, purely for the practical reasons of weight distribution, because the engine is mounted back probably 120mm back from where the original Falcons had the engines mounted, so the weight is moving towards the center. I wanted to do the same with the back end. I wanted to move the weight forwards to counteract that, so where the fuel tank was right over the top of the back axle. And I may still do that, but I'm looking at this gap and I'm thinking, man, that'd be pretty cool to just fill that with a massive drop tank. I don't want to use those round tips. Might look good on some cars. I think on this car I want to go with square tips. Not the same as a GT. No, I'll come up with something, but I want to use something that's like square or rectangle. Something in a way it's kind of replicates the shape of those tail lights. And I will have to make a panel to go underneath all of that regardless. Well, if I did a drop tank, I'd probably expose it, but if not, then I have to make a panel to go under there. All right, guys, thanks for watching and bearing with the project. Hope that you all get something out of it at some point. In the next episode, I'm going to look at mounting the remote oil filter kit, which I got from Power by the Hour. As I mentioned in a previous episode, we can't actually mount a normal oil filter on this because it's too close to the upper control arm, so we're going with the remote oil filter kit. So again, thanks for supporting the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.